computer network called Internet.
The bursting of the dot-com bubble always reminds me of the exploding whale video. Have you seen it?
Oh, yeah. I think I have seen that. Just the whale chunks flying everywhere, people running for their life, yeah.
I looked at the exploding whale. There was a complete disregard for the fundamentals of process. Protocols you follow for using large amounts of explosives under a 40-ton animal.
I don't remember much, just kind of some dunes and then a big, there's the whale and some explosion, and then there's like guts and blubber raining down and people running for their lives.
It had been so long since a whale had washed up in Lane County, nobody could remember how to get rid of one. In selecting its battle plan, the Highway Division decided the carcass couldn't be buried because it might soon be uncovered. It couldn't be cut up and then buried because nobody wanted to cut it up, and it couldn't be burned. So dynamite it was, some 20 cases or a half ton of it.
The exploding whale, it seems to be a good metaphor for the whole internet boom.
I've heard the internet bubble compared to things like, of course, tulip mania. I've heard it compared to the Beanie Baby craze. I've heard it compared to CBs.
An economic bubble, a state of things where so much is pushed into it that, and if you use the term bubble, we all know bubbles are bound to pop. Growth till you exceed the boundaries.
My exposure to the internet was the clunky and uncomfortable Lynx web browser, which was text-based, and wasn't a lot of fun.
A browser was so archaic. It had simple graphics with like blue borders around them, and you could click on them and then go to other places. Even though it was archaic, and we knew it was archaic, there was a magic potential about it.
This overload of information is like, whoa, computers, they can do this. There's this thing called the internet, and like,
The internet, as we know it now today, wasn't a universal concept, really. I think it was called the information superhighway at that time.
The gold rush, where the promise of quick riches was something that was infectious. People believed that it was within reach.
This was, in every sense, at least from the perspective of the people involved in it, was the new gold rush. And in any gold rush, for the most part, there are a few of the miners, a few of the prospectors who hit pay dirt and become wealthy, but most go bust. The people who make the money are the people who sell the picks, the shovels, the coats, the blankets, the beans, the bacon, the flour.
The hope was that the long-dead Pacific gray whale would be almost disintegrated by the blast, and that any small pieces still around after the explosion would be taken care of by seagulls and other scavengers.
Well, I'm confident that it'll work. The only thing is we're not sure just exactly how much explosives it'll take to disintegrate this thing so the scavengers, seagulls and crabs and whatnot can clean it up.
When I was doing internet consulting, I saw literally hundreds of people during the dot-com boom coming in with great new ideas. It wasn't so much that they were bad ideas, although some were. It was the gross incapability of the people who were bringing these ideas in that was astonishing.
it just got really weird. Because this is a company that, I started, there were like 8 or 10 people there, and when I left, there were about 110. And this is over the course of, 2-ish years. It seems like pretty quick growth to me,
We had latte carts every month, the last Friday of every month or whatever, and we just invite all the other dot-commers over, and you wouldn't work all morning and have 4 lattes. That was a good sign. We also had a full-length shuffleboard table.
And then the other excesses, which is just common stuff, is free Cokes, all the free soda you can drink to juice up all the programmers and such. And there's all the free food, and then parties and beer 30 on Fridays at 4:30, etc. And some of those things really haven't gone away. It's just a part of the fabric of high-tech startup now.
The companies would get money from the venture capital firms, and they had what they called churn and burn. They had to spend the money they got. So when you hear stories occasionally about trampolines or pool tables or swimming pools in the offices of some of these .coms, it wasn't just an extravagance to lure employees, although that was certainly a factor. A lot of it was they had to demonstrate they were spending the money so they could get more money from the venture capitalists.
I've attended an IPO party, and I've attended just, there was a lot of celebration back then. The climate was pretty festive.
It was a period of what I call baseless enthusiasm. It was just this frenzied feeding feast that really had no basis in good economics. We reach a point where we disregard common sense. We know at one level that this is bad, but everybody else is euphoric. It's like the mob mentality, that my responsibilities get diffused within the group, and I become it. Everybody else is doing it. I want to be part of it. I don't want to be left out.
The saga of the Pets.com puppet. When you think about it, Pets.com is a staggeringly bad idea for an e-commerce site. Dog food bags weigh about 40 pounds and they're this big, and they were offering free shipping to entice people to use it. This doesn't make sense on any planet. And yet they were caught up in this whole frenzy. It's the new way of doing business, and they had the very expensive ads with the little sock puppet. And old sock puppet, I remember when they finally went out of business, the last thing they did was auction off the puppet.
This is the happiest day of my life!
Yeah, speaking of like excesses, like Cosmo.com was the ultimate website, but I loved it. We used to order Ben & Jerry's and movies, and they deliver it to us. It was great, but they didn't charge you anything for it, and it was completely unsustainable business. Again, that was the key to all these failures, was that they had all these great ideas, but no way to make money.
Yeah, but I loved Cosmo though, man. Everyone wanted Cosmo to make it. Oh yeah, just movie and some ice cream, and oh yeah, and then you also need toothpaste tomorrow. What couldn't be better?
This one company, and things. This is when things are starting to head south. They were just throwing this big, lavish party that they rented out the Moor. The company was based off of services, like they would pick up your dry cleaning or walk your dog, or I can't exactly remember the name of it, but My Lackey, that's right. I just kind of remember thinking, why would they throw so much money away at this big party? And it almost kind of seemed like they were just they were following the trends of before and doing what they felt was right.
MyLackey.com was a site where you can get people to do whatever you want for you. So like pick up the laundry, do this, do that.
My understanding of My Lackey, it was a model that depended pretty heavily on discretionary income spending. And so basically, My Lackey is I'm relying on them to perform errands for me, pick things up, drop off my dry cleaning or whatnot. And that's a pretty volatile model.
The dynamite was buried primarily on the leeward side of the big mammal, so as most of the remains would be blown toward the sea. About 75 bystanders, most of them residents who had first found the whale to be an object of curiosity before they tired of its smell, were moved back a quarter of a mile away.
An economic bubble is when, probably by way of analogy, it's like somebody ingesting huge amounts of rich, good food, and they enjoy the euphoria of it. But there comes a point where their stomach can only handle so much. After that, it will burst, and it's unpleasant, it's ugly, it's a large fall all the way down to the ground.
All of a sudden, companies were going under. People were losing their jobs, and it's like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. Our company's fine. But then, like 6 months later, I was out of a job too. I knew things were starting to go bad when one of the founders of the company, like, he was always out, always buying us drinks and whatnot. And then, like, towards the end, like, he wasn't paying for the drinks anymore. It's like, something's wrong with this picture.
I watched the market tank really fast. I watched a lot of friends get unemployed really fast. Once the free soda goes away, it's back to reality.
End of a bubble.
All right, Fred, you can take your hands out of your ears. Here comes pieces of money.
Our camera stopped rolling immediately after the blast. The humor of the entire situation suddenly gave way to a run for survival as huge chunks of whale blubber fell everywhere. Pieces of meat passed high over our heads while others were falling at our feet. The dunes were rapidly evacuated as spectators escaped both the falling debris and the overwhelming smell. A parked car over a quarter of a mile from the blast site was the target of one large chunk. The passenger compartment literally smashed.
Prices are always going to get overblown in certain markets. I mean, that's investor psychology, it's consumer psychology. It's always going to happen, I think. What's that analogy they taught us in business school, the tragedy of the commons?
I remember when Alan Greenspan, back in the mid-90s, started talking about irrational exuberance. I remember laughing at that. I remember thinking, he doesn't get it. This is the new world. This is the future. This is where we're going. The Moore's Law is going to carry us into a new world of wealth and frictionless transactions. And I was right for a good 3-4 years more. It was the real theme of the bubble. That's what a bubble is. A bubble defined is irrational exuberance. And nobody wanted to believe it. Nobody ever wants to believe it. The stock market is a chain of greater fools.
Oh, but I got to buy my Aeron chair at a very low price. Oh yeah, man. You should have bought stock in Herman Miller.
Yeah, I can't say it's probably good for someone's health, mental or physical. It's good while it lasted.
It might be concluded that should a whale ever wash ashore in Lane County again, those in charge will not only remember what to do, they'll certainly remember what not to do.